Have you ever noticed that when some people walk into a room, everything seems to pause, even if they say nothing? And then there are others who go completely unnoticed. They speak, but no one listens. They try to join in, but their presence fades into the background. I used to be one of those people. I thought maybe I wasn't loud enough or important enough. But the truth is, I simply didn't understand how energy works, especially the kind of energy that speaks louder than words. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That applies here more than you might think. People can feel your unconscious energy before you speak a single word. If you carry doubt within you, they'll feel it. If you feel small, they will treat you as small. It's not about faking confidence. It's about waking up to how your presence is silently shaping the way the world responds to you. Most people try to impress others by talking more, moving faster, laughing louder. But it rarely works. In fact, the more they try to prove themselves, the more they push others away. Why? Because people don't respond to noise. They respond to calm control, and the calmest person in the room is often the one who holds the most power. Not because they speak the most, but because they've mastered their own inner state. There's an invisible ranking that forms the moment you enter any space. It's not always fair. It's not always logical. But it's real. People are constantly scanning for who leads and who follows, who stands strong and who gives their power away. This happens in conversations, in relationships, in business, everywhere. And the moment they place you in a lower category, it becomes almost impossible to rise above it. Unless you change the signal you send. This signal isn't about arrogance or showing off. It's something quieter, something deeper. It's how you hold yourself, how you pause before you speak, how you let silence work in your favor instead of rushing to fill it. You don't need to be rich or famous to do this. You just need to understand the psychology behind it. And once you do, everything changes. If this speaks to something inside you, comment, "I will master the pause" below. Because what I'm about to share with you is based not only on human behavior, but on something Jung understood deeply. True power comes from within. And when you learn how to hold that power without needing to prove it, the world begins to treat you very differently. Carl Jung often taught that the outer world reflects our inner world. In every interaction, people aren't just hearing your words, they're feeling your emotional state. And here's what most people don't realize. Before you even speak, others have already made a decision about you, based on how you walk in, based on how you hold yourself, based on how your energy enters the space, your posture, your eyes, your timing. All of it sends a message, whether you're aware of it or not. Have you ever tried to impress someone by talking quickly or saying too much, only to feel like you were being ignored? That's not a coincidence. When we rush to speak, when we chase validation through our words, we unconsciously signal weakness. It doesn't mean we are weak, but it tells others we don't fully believe in ourselves, and people respond to that belief, or the lack of it, often without realizing why. This is where one small, powerful shift changes everything. The pause. The ability to pause before you speak, to take a breath instead of rushing, to let silence do the heavy lifting. Most people fear silence in a conversation. They feel like they'll lose attention if they don't fill it immediately. But silence, when used correctly, is not empty. It's charged. It creates tension, and tension in psychology equals attention. Those who pause are not afraid of being judged. They're not scrambling for approval. They trust the weight of their words, and that trust is contagious. When someone asks you a question, and you don't answer right away, when you take a few seconds, hold eye contact, and then respond slowly, people automatically lean in. They become more invested in what you're about to say. because your silence signaled something most people don't expect. Inner certainty. This is why powerful people, whether in leadership, politics, or even fiction, often speak slowly and deliberately. They know how to create emotional space. They understand that the room will match their rhythm. And the moment they pause, everyone else waits. That is the essence of psychological gravity. Not trying to pull people in, but being so grounded that they feel pulled naturally. The truth is, your voice isn't just sound. It's a reflection of your internal state. And the more still you are inside, the more powerful your voice becomes. Jung believed that true transformation comes from becoming aware of what you used to ignore. And if you've never paid attention to how you use silence, now is the time to start. Because silence, when mastered, becomes a kind of quiet authority. And in a noisy world, that authority is rare and deeply respected. There's a reason why a person who pauses before they speak is perceived as more intelligent, more composed, even more important, and it's not magic, it's psychology. Carl Jung taught us that much of human interaction is unconscious. We react to symbols, to archetypes, to subtle energies that most people never even notice. A pause, when used deliberately, becomes one of those silent symbols. It says, I am not afraid to be seen, and more importantly, I don't need to rush to earn your respect. Most people don't realize that the nervous habit of filling silence, talking too fast, or over-explaining is often rooted in fear. The fear of being rejected, ignored, or misunderstood. But here's the paradox. The more we try to be accepted through words, the more we often lose respect. It's not because people are cruel. It's because, unconsciously, we associate stillness with strength and urgency with insecurity. Those who speak slowly are assumed to know what they're talking about. Those who hesitate and babble are quickly placed in a lower tier. And once that silent judgment is made, it's hard to reverse. You can talk all you want, but the unspoken energy has already placed you. Jung said that humans don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In this case, the darkness is your fear of being unseen, your need to prove yourself. When you bring awareness to it, when you stop reacting from it, you begin to reclaim your presence. And presence is the real power. Think about nature. The lion doesn't make noise when it's ready to hunt. It doesn't beg for attention. It moves with a kind of sacred patience. That stillness is felt by everything around it. The pause, in this way, is like the lion's stillness. It's a refusal to perform for approval. It's a choice to observe rather than chase. And in that restraint, there's every time you rush to speak, you give up ground. But every time you pause, you reclaim it. You take back your energy from the room and hold it in your center. And here's the beautiful part. When you speak from that center, slow, intentional, grounded, people listen. Not because you yell, not because you forced them, but because you held yourself like someone worth listening to. And that's something they feel before they even hear your words. Jung believed that our unconscious patterns shape how we're seen by the world. By learning to pause, not out of hesitation, but out of strength, you change the pattern. You interrupt the loop. You show the world a different symbol. Someone who doesn't need permission to hold space. And in return, the world begins to reflect that strength back to you. What makes a person magnetic has little to do with what they say, and everything to do with how they make others feel. Carl Jung believed that every interaction is a mirror. People see in you what they unconsciously feel in themselves. So when you speak with urgency or desperation, it doesn't just reflect anxiety. It activates anxiety in others. But when you slow down, when your energy is steady and unshaken, people begin to feel safer around you, even if they can't explain why. This is why powerful individuals, real or fictional, often speak with fewer words, yet leave deeper impressions. Their sentences are simple, their tone is calm, but their presence is unforgettable. because they've learned a rare skill, the art of holding emotional space. They don't just take up room physically, they create a field of awareness around them that others step into, and that field is shaped moment by moment by how they breathe, how they listen, and most of all, how they pause. Here's something most people miss. Silence isn't awkward unless you make it awkward. In fact, a well-placed pause can be more powerful than the words that follow it. It gives weight to what you're about to say. It signals that you are not rushing to be liked or trying to be entertaining. You are simply being. And being, in its truest form, is more commanding than performance will ever be. There's another layer to this, one Jung would have recognized. When you learn to pause, you're also learning to face the discomfort that silence brings. That moment of stillness reveals what you usually avoid. Maybe it's fear of rejection. Maybe it's the feeling of being unimportant. But when you stop running from those emotions and instead breathe through them, something shifts. You stop needing others to validate your voice. And that's when your real voice begins to emerge. Power isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. And the pause, though simple, is a daily invitation to do exactly that. It teaches you how to hold your ground, even when your heart is beating fast. It teaches you to value your own words enough to deliver them with intention. And it teaches others without force that you are not someone to be overlooked. So, the next time you feel the urge to rush through your words or to prove your worth, pause. Instead, let the silence stretch for a moment. Hold your gaze, ground yourself, then speak slowly, clearly, from that place of calm strength. That one move, done consistently, changes how people see you. And more importantly, it changes how you see yourself. Carl Jung taught that the outer world is often a stage where our inner stories are acted out without us even knowing. If you walk into a room feeling uncertain, the people around you unconsciously respond to that uncertainty. They might interrupt you more, ignore your input, or overlook your presence. Not because they're unkind, but because something in you gave them permission to do so. This is why the pause matters so much. It interrupts that old script. It tells the world, this time I am showing up differently. Think of how rare it is to meet someone who is fully grounded, someone who speaks slowly, listens deeply, and does not rush to be accepted. When you do meet them, they leave a mark on you. Why? Because their energy speaks louder than their words. They radiate something stable. They don't just talk, they transmit. And in that transmission, others feel safe, attentive, even slightly in awe. That's not charisma. That's inner alignment, made visible. When you practice the pause, you begin training your nervous system to remain calm under pressure. This might sound subtle, but it's actually transformational. Because in every conversation, there's a quiet power struggle happening. Who sets the tone? Who leads the rhythm? Who controls the emotional temperature of the room? Most people don't even realize this dynamic exists. But it does, and when you become the one who pauses first, you begin to lead without saying you're the leader. This isn't about manipulation. It's about mastery. Jung believed that those who integrate their unconscious fears become whole, and in doing so, become strong. The pause is one small way to practice that integration. In silence, your insecurities surface. You can either run from them by talking too fast, or face them by staying still. Each time you choose stillness, you strengthen the part of you that no longer needs to prove anything. And here's where the transformation really begins. When people feel your self-possession, the way you hold your words, your posture, your gaze, they start to respond differently. They ask for your opinion more. They defer to your timing. They begin to reflect back to you the confidence you've been cultivating inside. This creates a new cycle. Presence fuels respect, and respect deepens presence. One feeds the other. So understand this. Your power was never about volume. It was never about impressing others or being the loudest in the room. It was always about alignment with yourself. The pause simply brings that alignment to the surface, and once it's visible, the world cannot help but respond. Carl Jung believed that your future depends on how much of your unconscious you're willing to face. The pause, as simple as it may seem, is one of those moments where the unconscious reveals itself. When you stop rushing to speak, you begin to notice things. The tightness in your chest, the urge to be liked, the subtle fear that silence might make you invisible. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't erase you. It introduces you. Many people fear stillness because they think it makes them appear unsure or disconnected. But in reality, it has the opposite effect. When you pause before speaking, it tells others, I am not here to beg for your attention. I am here to offer something of value. That kind of presence shifts how people see you. You're no longer trying to be heard. You are heard because you've already listened to yourself. This is how deep respect is built, not by forcing others to acknowledge you, but by becoming someone who respects their own energy first. The pause becomes a sacred boundary, a moment where you refuse to abandon yourself in order to win someone's approval. And that refusal, it speaks louder than words. Jung would say this is the journey of individuation, becoming whole, no longer split between who you are and who you pretend to be. Now ask yourself, how often do you give your power away just to avoid discomfort? How often do you rush into speech or over-explain your thoughts just to fill the space? The pause trains you to be still in the face of discomfort. And through that stillness, you grow stronger. It teaches you not just how to speak, but how to exist with dignity. And once you embody that, people sense it. You've seen it before. Someone speaks slowly, clearly, and everyone listens. Not because of their volume, but because of their weight. That weight comes from within. From knowing who you are. From not being in a hurry to prove it. From holding space, first for yourself, and then for others. This is presence. This is power. And it's learned in the silence you used to avoid. The next time you're in conversation, remember this. You don't need to perform. You don't need to chase. You only need to hold the pause. Let it speak for you. Let it reshape your energy. And as it does, you'll notice something subtle but life-changing. The world will begin to pause for you too. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." The pause is the beginning of that inner awakening. It's not just a technique, it's a portal, a mirror, a return to yourself. Every time you choose not to rush, not to react, not to chase validation with noise, you claim something that was always yours but long forgotten, your authority. And true authority doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't need to. In a world addicted to speed, the one who moves slowly becomes unforgettable. In a culture obsessed with attention, the one who holds silence becomes sacred. When you pause, you're not withholding yourself. You're inviting the world to meet you on your terms. You're no longer bending your energy to fit someone else's urgency. You're setting the tempo, and that changes everything. Let me be clear, most people will never understand this. They will continue to chase attention, over-explain, stumble through conversations, trying to be impressive, and they will keep being overlooked. Not because they don't have value, but because they haven't learned how to protect their value. The pause protects you. It guards your energy. It turns every word into a choice instead of a reaction. Those who master the pause become the quiet forces others respect without even knowing why. They don't dominate through volume. They don't beg through effort. They simply exist in their own fullness. And that fullness radiates. It pulls others in. It creates a new kind of gravity, one that makes people stop, look, listen, and adjust themselves accordingly. This is the kind of presence that doesn't fade. The kind of energy that remains in people's minds long after you've left the room. Not because of what you said, but because of how you made the space feel. This is legacy energy. Mature energy, the energy of someone who has stepped beyond their fear, faced their unconscious, and chosen to live from their center. So now the choice is yours. The next time you speak, will you rush or will you pause? Will you chase or will you command? Will you disappear or will you hold space? Remember, silence is not weakness. It is a language of its own, a language that only those who know themselves can truly speak. And when you learn it, not just with your voice, but with your entire presence, you won't need to demand respect. You will already have